Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone here. This is a special meeting of Colleton County Council. Today is Tuesday, April 21st, 2020. It is now 1 p.m. and we will start the meeting. Before we start, I'd like to go ahead and call us to order. In the roll call, Vice Chairman Taylor.
Here.
And I will point out for the record that Vice Chairman Taylor is participating remotely by telephone. Councilman Flowers.
Here.
Councilman Williams.
Here.
Councilman Wetzel.
Present.
Please let the record reflect that we have a quorum present. Before we get started, I'm going to ask, as we traditionally do, to have the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Councilman Taylor, although he's remote, if he would please offer the invocation. Everyone, please stand.
Let us pray. Dear Lord our God, we are certainly grateful, and we want to say thank you, Lord, for your great protection, your mercy, and your grace that you bestowed upon Colleton County and all those who work, live, and serve in our area. Lord, we send our condolences and our prayers up for those families that have lost life and those that have been affected by the coronavirus, by the tornado that ravaged through our community. But Lord, we want to thank you for our leadership and everyone that has been participating in concert, in unity, in the spirit of unity, to work together to ensure that...
I hope you were not driving while you were doing that. I know you said you were in your car. Again, I'd like to welcome everyone. Of course, these are some extraordinary times. All my time on council, I think this is the first time that we have had to have meetings under these type conditions. And just for those who are watching and those present, we are trying to exercise social distancing. You'll notice we're a little bit farther apart than normal. So just wanted to point that out. We have some folks who are here present in the room. We have a lot of folks present here from Fire Rescue. Mr. John Carpenter's here from Finance. And before we start, I just want to say to those folks that are here, particularly Fire Rescue, I know this has been a long, tedious process. I have been listening more than anything on the calls that y'all have had every morning. Mr. McCroy is here, and David Green is here. I know he's usually leading the meetings and the COVID calls that we have every morning. I just want to let everybody know, what a fantastic job that these folks are doing. If you could really hear those calls, and it's not just the Fire Rescue, there's involvement from different agencies, different departments, different branches of government involved in this call, but the collaborative effort between those, has been very admirable, and I just want to thank you guys for what y'all have done. That being said, we have a somewhat condensed agenda today. Some of that will be explained a little bit when we get to one of these ordinances. But before we get to that, we have an item here on the agenda for approval of minutes of the regular meeting of March the 3rd, 2020.
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. That'll bring us to item 5 on the agenda, the administrator's briefing. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Griffin.
Mr. Chairman and Council, good afternoon. I do want to point out before I get started is that we will be acting under a virtual meeting under an emergency ordinance. That will be the first item under new business on the agenda. This ordinance will set the procedures for meetings of both the Colleton County Council and any of our boards and committees as well. This ordinance was developed from guidance from both South Carolina Association of Counties as well as numerous other counties have collectively got together to try to hammer out some procedures that both meet our FOIA requirements, our state law requirements, but also meet the safety requirements of the current situation we're in with COVID-19. With that being said, I'll move on. Chairman Murdoch, I appreciate you recognizing our folks here behind us. I wanted to go into a little more detail with that. We're now in our 36th day of COVID response at the county, which means for 36 consecutive days, with the exception of our excitement last Monday with the tornado, this group of folks has gotten together every day at 9:30 a.m. 7 days a week for a local call to make sure that everybody in our community has what they need, from PP&E to food to anything else is regarding this COVID response. Those folks, I wanted to go through and name them all real quick that are on the call and in the room with us every day. Starting off with David Green, our EMD director, Marty Stallings, our operations director, Adrian Stokes with planning, Janet Laney with logistics, Scott Feather with planning, Mikey Banks also with planning, Brent Dalton. I will point out also that Brent Dalton, we ran short on solid waste drivers because of the COVID situation. And hold on one second. You want to see if he can mute his phone?
Yeah, Mr. Taylor, it might be a good idea if you would mute your phone, and then when you want to respond, unmute, because we're getting a little feedback.
Muted.
Thank you. Joey Campbell with the planning section. Joey has also been in charge of anytime we've had a personnel issue regarding to COVID, somebody with a possible infection or that possibly been exposed. They work through both John Carpenter and back through Joey. Joey goes through the list of conditions that could possibly mean that they need to look at emergency paid leave or some other items, whether they need to be on staff or we need to send them home to make sure we're not affecting anybody else and make sure their personal safety. So I want to give a special thanks to Joey on that. I know he's been called at all hours of the night when there's a possible infection, both Sheriff's Office, EMD, or anybody else affected. Also from the Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Gint, Jason Chapman, and Angela Stallings have been on each call. From DSS, Ms. Sandy Polk. From SCDOT, Mr. Adam Bishop. Our Chairman, Steve Murdoch. From the City of Walterboro, Bill Young, Mayor, Jeff Molinari, City Manager, and Hank Amundsen, Assistant City Manager. Mr. Raymond Bartee, who is our Regional Director with DHEC, has been a great help on getting information back from them, and it's been somewhat frustrating because this has been a new process for us. And during this process, this is the first time that on a statewide emergency that South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control has been the lead agency, not state EMD. So this is really something new to them as well. And the first couple weeks, it was a little touch and go there about trying to get information out and how we dealt with it. But I think after a while, EMD and DHEC were able to kind of work hand in hand to help us get more information than we were getting to begin with. But certainly it's gotten better as we moved along. Also want to thank Ms. Carla Harvey with engineering. She's gotten particularly busy now that we've had the tornado, and one of her areas of responsibility in emergency situations is getting the debris removed and our roads opened. And certainly last but not least, Ms. Megan Chaplin, who served as our PIO during EMD, and she's been responsible for getting all of our public service announcements out, getting this meeting set up, as well as they're also doing virtual meetings or virtual interactions once a week with the community. With any questions they come in, they can submit them, and they're moving back and forth with this equipment we got here, which has worked out really well, and we've got a good response on that. So I just want to thank those folks. Next, I do want to talk for a minute about the tornado that came through. Certainly we had some loss of life, which we hate to see here in our community. Also, Hampton County was greatly affected, even more so than we were. The county itself, it looks like next door here that the Butler building may be a total loss. We had the IRF in late last week. They're coming back with their structural engineer. Within that building, we had over 60 years of tax records, finance records, court records, you name it, were stored in the Butler building. And in about 9 hours on Tuesday, with personnel from facilities, recreation, summer feeding, and IT, as well as Councilman Murdoch sending over his son Drew, his buddy Carter Smoke, and John Tomadowski, we got 60 years worth of records moved over to the Hampton Street Auditorium building. It got those out of harm's way. Luckily, we got those done because we got another 4 inches of rain just about the next day, and those would have been completely ruined had we not done that. Also, in that response, I want to thank Walker Tax Service. They donated 2 U-Hauls to us for that process to get those records moved as well. So we'd like to thank Mr. Paul Walker and his outfit over there for donating those U-Haul trucks as well to help us get those records moved. Beyond that, I got Dr. David Green, here, and he's prepared a report for you both to get you updated on where we are with COVID-19 as well as the latest damage information on the tornadoes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of council, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We began tracking the COVID-19 outbreak in late February, early March, and we issued a public service announcement on March the 10th regarding monitoring and virtual care that was available. On March the 16th, that was the day that schools closed, our EOC moved to OPCON 2, enabled us to start implementing pieces of our emergency operations plan, and we issued Incident Action Plan number 1 that day. I have been fortunate enough to serve with the many members of the incident management team that Mr. Griffin mentioned. They have been working very hard for 36 days straight without a break. We have recorded 215 notable activities. We've had 47 resource requests and filled 34 of those, including using supplies from the Strategic National Stockpile. We have never received anything from the Strategic National Stockpile in the past. We received 3 separate shipments, and we were directed to distribute those to all public and private healthcare providers, supply them with PPE, personal protective equipment. Today, Colleton County has 23 confirmed cases in total since the inception of this incident, and 11 current cases. Those are those that were identified in the last 14 days. Although DA estimates that there are 10 unidentified cases for every identified case. So this suggests that there could be up to 164 total cases in Colleton County. On the morning of April 13th, we experienced a tornado outbreak. 3 of these were EF1 strength and occurred in a path from Steyer's Highway at Cypress Pond Road through the city of Walterboro and continuing through Rondo and Cottageville. The 4th tornado rated at EF2 strength by the National Weather Service occurred on Edisto Beach and caused significant damage to several homes along the beachfront, including several where the persons were trapped but uninjured. It's thought that the tornado that caused massive damage at the Low Country Regional Airport also caused a tree to fall on a residence on Barricada Road. 1 person there self-extricated. Fire rescue, firefighter, paramedics, assisted by sheriff's office personnel, were able to rescue a child that was trapped under the tree. And tragically, an adult female died as a result of the tree falling. At the peak of the damage, there were 33 roads closed, including Interstate 95, and 12,000 power outages in Colleton County. SCDOT and Public Works have been working diligently over the last week. All roads have been cleared and power has been restored. However, there is considerable debris remaining. On April 16th, the pond behind Greenlawn Cemetery on Hendersonville Highway had its dam break. It is thought that this was due to trees being down during the severe storms on the 13th. Approximately 14 million gallons of water crossed Hendersonville Highway, and although it destroyed a sewer lift station, there was no residential damage. We're estimating today, and these are very rough estimates, total public infrastructure damage of $6.4 million and total private damage of $1.617 million. We've had 221 calls to the public EOC line and have issued 10 tarps for residential damage. Overall, we've received 75 reports of damage, although there are many more in the city of Walterboro. They're still compiling their statistics. FEMA will be here tomorrow with SC&D to perform a joint preliminary damage assessment for individual assistance. And we expect the potential for severe weather again on Thursday, unfortunately, and it's that time of year. And also, just as a reminder, hurricane season begins in 1 month and 10 days. So we are trying to finish our preparations for that as well. Be glad to entertain any questions that you have. Thank you, Mr. Green. Any members of council have any questions?
I'd like to thank you very much for such a great job that you're doing. All the people in this county appreciate it also. Thank you, David.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Green, I do have one question. And it's just, questions actually are just coming up now because it appears that the state's turning towards sort of reopening, getting quote unquote back to normal. What if employers, this issue of testing is the question. If someone wants to be tested, where can they go? Is there a timeline? Do you have any expectation on that? I know it's an issue that's been kicked around in these calls. where can someone go to be tested if they want to be tested? And can they get a test, or do they have to be symptomatic? What is that?
You do have to be symptomatic, that is correct. And I believe even using the virtual care available from Roper, MUSC, I think most of the major healthcare providers have a virtual care system now, but you do have to be symptomatic to be tested. And I'm only aware of a couple of places here in town, but you know, your physician would obviously, you have to have a physician's order to be tested. So they would recommend you be tested based on your symptoms.
Okay, I just want to get the facts out there, because a lot of people think you can just roll up and get a test, but you have to be symptomatic.
That is correct.
Let me also mention about testing. All these tests are not 100%. People are thinking that they're 100%, but they're certainly not. There are false positives and there are false negatives, and we all know that. And so I think that we're relying too much on tests rather than clinical findings in some of these cases. So I just want to mention that. I've been in this business a long time, and certainly even the flu test now is not over about 65% accurate, and we've had it around for a long time. So I just want to mention the fact that we can't always go by tests. We have to go by the clinical findings in these people also.
Yes, sir. Excellent point.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Green, it's my understanding, and I know for a fact because I have a sister that was involved, that she had no symptoms, but then yet when she was pressed her way and finally got emergency services to take her to the hospital, then they found out that she had the virus, but she had none of the symptoms. How do we respond to that, to people in the community that don't really have the symptoms except just feeling lousy but no other symptom involved?
Yes, sir. I would offer that if they're unable to make it to their personal physician, to reach out to one of the virtual care platforms that are available online. They don't have to leave their home to use those. They can be evaluated by a physician online. They can evaluate their symptoms and determine whether they can use one of the other alternative testing sites, the drive-up sites that are available in Charleston, or where they don't have to get out of their vehicle or something like that.
I think,
Thank you.
David may have, the second part of that too is what we're using, especially with our employees and those related to them. If we think there's a chance that they may be infected, stay home. We send them home right now we send them home for 7 days. They come back to Joey Campbell at planning, and he'll reevaluate them again to see if they've had any symptoms, they're feeling bad at all. If they still are, stay home for another 7 days. You know, the guidance we're getting down from the feds and the CDC is if they think they're infected, they need to stay at home and stay quarantined, so to speak, for 14 days to help that virus run its course and not get that back out in the community. Is that correct, David?
Absolutely. And that's particularly important with people that don't ever call out sick. They may feel bad, but they always come to work. They don't ever miss a day. We really have to tell them, stay home. If you're feeling bad, we need you to stay home. So, absolutely.
And certainly, as Mr. Williams was pointing out, his sister didn't have any significant symptoms. That's why we do the social isolation that we're doing and telling people to stay home. The less personal interaction that we have, the less likely we are to get this virus from somebody who's asymptomatic. That's the problem. That's why we've had all this isolation, because of the asymptomatic patient carrying this virus, and we don't know who has it and who doesn't. So we have to assume everybody has it. That's why we have to assume everybody has it.
Thank you, Dr. Green.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're fortunate. We have our own Dr. Fauci right here on campus. We're fortunate to have a physician here in times like this, for sure. Griffin, does that conclude your briefing?
That's right. One more thing,
Okay.
or a couple more things. One other, as far as heroes in this situation, a couple other folks I do want to point out. Number one, all of our department heads and elected officials have operated fabulously in these conditions. I've had no complaints. They've assimilated real quickly, come up with plans on their own to operate their own departments, and Oddly enough, we've had very few. I appreciate the public as well, because we've had very few public complaints. When we have got them, our folks have reacted quickly and come up with methods to be able for our folks to continue doing business in the community, although it be virtually or by email or telephone or what we need to do. So I do want to thank all of them, as well as our folks last week. Our summer feeding program at the commercial kitchen took on, between the school district and our feeding program, we've been putting out 40,000 meals per week to the children in this community to keep them fed during this time. Last week, Cliff Warren from the school district, a couple weeks ago, actually asked us if we could look at, they were on spring break last week, handling 1 week's worth of 40,000 meals. We've been doing about 3,000. Ms. Eartha Cunningham and Matt Bardell got together with the resources they had, pulled on some folks that we didn't have currently working, but were able to pull in through the summer feeding program, and they prepared roughly 8,000 meals a day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of last week. 2 of those days in the dark because of the tornado. So I really do want to point out, those heroes, and they really did a good job of getting that done. Another ancillary effect to that, some information got out what they were doing. We go back to normal schedule this week, but we've been contacted by some nonprofits, Community Foundation over in Beaufort, about bringing some financial assistance to the community, provide meals to our seniors that are having troubles getting nutrition. So we're sending off some paperwork on that about 10 minutes before we came in that meeting. It looks like something we're going to be able to put together here in the next 7 to 10 days as well. So I want to thank them very much. Last item I have is John Carpenter has been, he and I have been following the revenue situation related to COVID very closely. The South Carolina Association of Counties has had a number of briefings, as well as one call with our State Economic Advisor Board we had last week. And then I think you saw here at the end of the week, the governor announced that he would be calling the legislature back into session for a continuing resolution in June. They're now, from my understanding, looking at adopting a budget at least until September, because of trying to understand where the revenue situation to get and what the impact's going to be. So with that being said, John's got a report for you, and I think he's got some information he's going to go through real quick just to let you know where we are with that.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Council. There's a lot of information on this piece of paper I pass out, or pages. So I won't go through every line, but I'll try to give you the highlights. As Kevin mentioned, we had a call last week or so, or April 9th, with Frank Rainwater, with the Executive Director of the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Department. He kind of talked about where the state budget was at this time. Just to give you an idea, in February, at their February update, they projected about a $567 million state surplus. In March, that surplus had grown to over $700 million. Now they're projecting, as of April, they're projecting over a 20% decrease in state GDP for the fiscal year, or for the last quarter of the fiscal year. For the first and second quarter of the new fiscal year, so that would be starting in July 1, they are projecting no growth. For the third and fourth quarter, they would project about a 4 to 6% growth. Of course, this could be revised at any point based on if we have to reenact or do any more social distancing or other extreme measures that we've put into place here in April. As Kevin mentioned, they do expect that the state will pass a continuing resolution, and that hopefully we'll have a new budget sometime in the September-October timeframe. For the county itself, I wanted to give you just a little bit of an update. Obviously, our largest source of revenue for the county is property taxes. Overall, we project for this current fiscal year to come in about 98% of budget. We did not see quite the growth that we had put in the budget in the assessed value, so we're coming in just a little bit short there. But for next year, we would project, about another 100. We would project the assessed value to grow at about 1 to 1.5%. So that would generate another $150,000 to $200,000 in the budget for next year, which is important because in a lot of areas we project some significant decreases in revenues from this event. Some of the most affected are going to be our hospitality taxes, the county admissions tax, the local option sales tax, the county capital project sales tax, and then some of the county fees, fines, and court fees and fines as well. Just to give you an idea, hospitality taxes, we had been trending upward through the collections, and of course these collections come in a month late. So in April, we're receiving collections for that are through the month of March. So we really won't see true April numbers until the month of May. But what we're projecting based on some of the obviously closures of hotels and closures of a number of restaurants or very limited services is we expect that we'll come in about 80% of where we thought we would be for the fiscal year. And that next year will be pretty close to the same, depending on how quickly we are able to rebound as within our county and within obviously nationwide within the state. But that if we come in at about 80%, that's about a $200,000 revenue loss for the county. And the hospitality tax, admissions tax revenues, they support, the recreation department, the museum, the Colleton Center, as well as several agencies that we provide direct assistance to. The local option sales tax, comes in as the county 1% local option. It is collected still on grocery items, so it's not affected as greatly as some of the other taxes. However, obviously consumer spending overall is down. We project it will be down. We're projecting about a 10-15% decrease in the third quarter collections that are remitted from the DOR, and then we're expecting about a 50 to 60% decrease in the fourth quarter collections. For next year, we project that this revenue could be, decreased between 15 to about 15% from the current year, and that would equate to about a $90,000 loss in revenue to the county for the next budget year. Capital project sales tax, of course, is the 1%. It is not obviously collected on groceries, so we expect that the revenue loss there will be a little bit greater. Right now, we project annually about $4.4 million a year is collected that goes to pay the debt service on those bonds. First two quarters that we had gotten, they were running above. We were about 57% of budget and about 7% over the prior year. We project for the third quarter and for the fourth quarter that we'll see, especially for the fourth quarter, we'll see significant decreases. And that possibly we may not collect enough to cover the annual debt service that will be due for the upcoming year that's due July 1. We do have excess collections from previous fiscal years that will help cover those bond debt service. But obviously, part of that excess that we collected is to pay that last year of the bonds when the tax expires. So obviously, it's something we'll have to watch closely, and hopefully that during the next fiscal year, it's able to rebound quickly enough so that we're able to maintain the debts, maintain collections at the debt service level. Just because of closure of the court systems, we do project that court fees, fines are going to drop somewhat, probably about 5 to 10% over the next fiscal year. That's a small loss, about $30,000 to $40,000 a year, but it is a revenue stream that we'll have to watch. Also, county permitting, county fees, and other fines, we project some decrease with the office closures, just also obviously lack of, just some slowdown of business. Again, we project about a 10 to 15% decrease there possibly in the next fiscal year. Which will also have a smaller effect, about $50,000 a year. One of the biggest areas we'll see some slowdown, or we have seen some slowdown and will continue, is in our recreational revenues. This could be through the rec center, this could be through the museum. And so obviously, right now we were running about 10 to 20% above budget through the first half of the year. We do project that for the third quarter and for the fourth quarter, for the remaining part of the year, since those facilities have been closed, that obviously revenues will not be there. We do project that for next year we could lose about $300,000 in revenue, depending on how quickly we're some of our recreational events are able to, resume. It depends on how fast, tournaments are rescheduled. If they're rescheduled, obviously people, may or may not be, there may be some hesitation depending on how things play out. So that's something we'll have to watch. On a slightly maybe brighter side, we have seen some savings in expenses during this period, and we'll continue to try to find savings for any non-essential expenses we can. Obviously, we have seen some savings in our food costs. We have seen, due to the lack of tournaments, like through our concession stand. We've also seen some savings in office supplies. The offices have been, slower, and some have been closed for different days or some periods. As well as we've seen some significant savings lately in our fuel costs, which obviously is a large expense for the county, given the current prices of fuel. So obviously those have helped stem some of these losses that we're expecting or are projecting in revenues. I do want to mention just one thing briefly. When we ended fiscal year 19, the county had about a $9.5 million fund balance. Of that fund balance, $8.4 million was unassigned and was available for county use if needed. That is about 120 days, about 4 months worth of coverage. If revenue projections possibly come out where we think they are and we're not able, we may need to dip into fund balance between 5 to 10 days of that. Each day of expenditures is about a little bit less than $80,000. So we would look at possibly, between $300 to $800,000 in fund balance possibly that could be needed to help maintain a balanced budget if some of these revenue projections come out on that far end or on the worst case type scenarios, and it takes longer for the economy to rebound. As Kevin mentioned, there was a poll that went out from the Association of Counties. It did ask counties what they plan to do for the upcoming budget year. There are some notes in there. Most are budgeting decreases in revenues. You can kind of see that. None are projecting any staff furloughs. Several are going to move forward with continuing resolutions like we have talked about. And then a lot are, making adjustments on expenditures as well, maybe freezing positions, not providing cost of living or other salary adjustments unless it's essential. The last piece on this paper that I have provided is just some information on some mandated or some expenditures that, will need to be addressed in the budget, some being mandated both from the state and then obviously some contractually. So that's all the information. I know it's a lot. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions from the council?
This is Councilman Taylor. I think I have a question that may be related to John or David. Some of the people in the community have been asking about disaster relief for their homes and other things like that. Do we think we're going to meet a trigger with the state in terms of people to access maybe some grants or other help to repair their homes that have been damaged through the tornado?
Yes, sir. That's what we're meeting about tomorrow with FEMA, the individual assistance preliminary damage assessment. There is no threshold for individual assistance, so when they complete their PDA tomorrow, they'll have an idea of what kind of programs they can turn on for our community. That could be SBA loans, small business administration loans, which are also available to citizens that don't have small businesses in a post-disaster environment, and individual assistance grants. So it may include either or both of those.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, hearing no other questions, Mr. Griffin, or you?
I'd like to thank John for he spent a lot of time and energy on putting that information together and keeping his ear to the ground with the state, as well as I think I left him off of our EMD list, but he's been there right with us every morning as well, so we appreciate that. But other than that, that's all I have for you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll move on then on the agenda to item 6, new business. Item A, emergency ordinance 20-0-03, emergency ordinance temporarily suspending the existing procedures for conducting meetings of the Colleton County Council and its boards and commissions to the extent necessary to protect the citizens of Colleton County, the Colleton County staff, the board and commission members, and the Colleton County council members from the COVID-19 epidemic, and establishing temporary procedures for such.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. That will bring us to item B. First reading ordinance 20-0-04 by title only to provide for the levy of taxes in Colleton County, South Carolina for the fiscal year July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020, to provide for all other appropriations thereof and to provide for other matters related thereto.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Brings us to item C, resolution 20-R-19 to award the contract for the expansion of the Arlington Fire Station.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Question. Mr. Chairman, what type of work are they doing in the expansion?
My understanding is they're expanding the bay, really, or adding an additional bay is what they're doing, is that?
Yeah, Chief McCoy.
Adding 3 days. The, council, the fire station was built in 1980. The fire trucks back then were very small. The new pumper that we have ordered for Arlington will not fit in the old fire station. There's been a plan to add bays to that station for about 15 years, but we've never had the funding. So that was included in the bond this year. And so they'll be adding 3 bays on the side of the building and then renovating the old building.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. It brings us to item D, resolution 20-R-20 to approve the purchase of a used Caterpillar motor grader in accordance with section 3.08.215 of the county's purchasing ordinance for the Roads and Bridges Department as included in the fiscal year 2020 capital fund budget.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion. We also have a second. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I understand us trying to save by getting or use equipment, but however, we're getting a piece of equipment that I think is approximately 8 or 9 years old, and it's half the price. But if you're gonna have issues later on, and I know the mileage is, the hours are low on it, but if you're gonna have problems coming up soon, I think we're not doing the county any service by continuing to purchase used equipment for some departments. Now, we just went through a massive overhaul on our purchasing of vehicles that oftentimes sits, but then yet when it comes down to a piece of equipment that's going to help on those dirt roads and help to get the work done that we need to have done for our citizens, we're always going to use equipment. And anytime a piece of equipment is down for any period of time, it impacts the citizens more so than a new vehicle sitting in a parking lot that is only used sparingly when someone decides that they're going somewhere to take a trip. So that's my biggest concern.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any nay? We have 4 ayes and 1 nay. The motion carries. See, that'll bring us into item E, resolution 20-R-21 to waive solid waste construction and debris landfill fees related to the severe weather incident on April 13th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. That'll bring us to item F on the agenda, which is resolution 20-R-22 to adopt a continuing budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic and to authorize the expenditure of funds.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a
Second.
second. Any discussion? Just for the record, when this was on the agenda went out, I'd called Mr. Griffin. I wanted to make sure that if there was anything in our budget that needed to be purged, it was not a normal expenditure, that we take that out. I think he's assured me that there's nothing in there that would have been a one-time type situation last year.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add, we may continue on down the road as we get better information from the state with the second reading at our next meeting and move on. As John said, there are a number of counties that are just basically rolling over or revising their revenue estimates down and dealing with it and going ahead and getting a budget approval, and then whatever happens at the state level, deal with it then. So I guess we'll put belts and suspenders on it until we see exactly what happens.
Okay, I understand. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, and that brings us to item 7 on the agenda, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously, and we will stand adjourned.
Thank you.